come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You got a belly up to the bar, we kept you seat, and it's great to see you back. Snowball is going to be your bartender today. Tonight, he pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, and gosh, what does that mean? Well, if you're listening to me right now, you're listening on the SHR Media Network at shrmedia.com. But if you want to watch, then you can go to the SHR Media Facebook page, SHR Media Facebook page. And you can also go to the SHR Media YouTube channel. Go into YouTube, SHR Media, boom, quick like a bunny, and you can watch in two places, listen in one. Wow. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the damn toilet, jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight in the Saloon, I think it's time to kick 2017 to the curb, if for no other reason that it plain outright was bidirectional for BZ. It sucked and it blew. Well, so if you thought 2017 was going to be wild, I think that you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen the roller coaster that 2018 is going to be. So how are we going to do this tonight? Well, first, I have to make sure that the levels are okay. All right, that looks good. That looks good. We're going to do this with audio, with some songs, with some articles, with some reminiscences. I just made that up. We're going to be pointing fingers at absolutely ridiculous leftists and showing you that, well, it ain't all so bad. We could have had Hillary Clinton and another jurist in the Supreme Court right now. And I think perhaps, because this is sort of a staple now, we're going to start the show with this.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
One of the first, by the way, tonight I have three, count them, tres stories for you tonight. The first one says this. Oh my God. The lava lamp is coming to life. Again, I say it looks like something from a Ridley Scott movie. Pay no attention to whatever the hell it is behind the lava lamp here. Here's an article says, data, Trump admin reduces refugee admissions by 70% in first year. President Trump reduced foreign refugee admissions by roughly 70% in nearly the first year of his presidency, a new report said. Center for Immigration Studies researchers Nayla Rush revealed a new study comparing refugee admissions to the United States under Trump versus those under former President Obama between January 20th to December 20th, 2017, and the same time period in 2016. During the first 11 months of Trump's presidency, the popular nationalist president cut the number of foreign refugees entering the U.S. by about 70%, according to research. In his first 11 months, Trump admitted 28,875 foreign refugees to the U.S., a vast difference from the whopping 93,668 foreign refugees admitted in the same time period under Obama. Likewise, for fiscal year 2018, Trump has lowered the numbers of refugees who can enter the U.S. to 45,000, which, by the way, happens to be the lowest refugee cap since 1980. But where's my manners? My mother always said two things. Never eat anything bigger than your head. Haven't, won't. And she also said, hey, mind your manners. Well, my manners is hello to everybody in chat. I'd like to say hello to TC, Traveling Cynic. I'd like to say hello to Mike. I'd like to say hello to Mary Brockman. As you can see, our chair is open. I've turned the seat heater on, by the way, just as you requested. And folks, you can tell it's Mary Brockman's chair because that's the stitching on the back, and that's the one that you don't sit in. Not even when she's gone. All right? It's inviolate. You cannot do that. And also to one viewer who shall remain masked because we don't unmask people here in the saloon. Well, besides that, as you well know, today, if you were perusing the internet, the state of California has a new sanctuary city sign. Yes, it's actually not real, but I wouldn't be surprised if some leftists did, in fact, put it up there. This is when I wish that I could, zip over and put a picture up on the computer, and I'm not sufficiently technically savvy to know how to do that yet. But in any event, the acting director of ICE wasn't real happy about that. And here's a great interview. Hello, California. You might have an issue on your hands if this guy is any indication.
All right, there are sanctuary cities and towns, but a sanctuary state, will California officially becoming the first such state in the country. Governor Jerry Brown says it is, meant to really protect illegal immigrants living in the shadows of society and making sure authorities don't try to yank them out of there. But acting ICE Director Thomas Hellman says it is putting politics above public safety. He joins us now with his first interview since the Golden State became the sanctuary state.
This is grand.
Very good to have you, Acting Director. I mean, I couldn't believe this when I first heard it because it's one thing when a city or a community kind of unofficially espouses these views, quite another for a governor to put the stamp and his blessing behind it on a statewide level. What do you make of that?
I think it's terrible. I mean, you got a state of California that wants to put politics ahead of public safety, ahead of officer safety. What they've done is force my officers to arrest.
Now listen to this. This is critically important if you're a cop. And this, trust me, this is what the ICE officers are thinking, and that's one of the first responses that they had, knowing that California became a sanctuary state. In other words, their jobs just went up. The danger in their jobs just went up exponentially. And perhaps you may be saying to yourself, BZ, why would that be? Listen.
Dangerous criminals on their turf, in their homes, in their place of business, rather than arresting them in the safety and security of a county jail. It's ridiculous to knowingly and intentionally put law enforcement at risk. It's just in the American communities, the communities themselves put at risk. When you release a public safety threat back into the public, it's just a foolish decision they made.
Now, do you understand what he's saying? And that's this. This is a very important point to make. When an illegal, for example, is arrested, he or she goes to jail, then a teletype or a communication is sent out customarily in other states notifying ICE that we have someone that we believe is illegal in custody, and once we're through with them, you can come and pick them up. And then they send a detainer or a hold. And in California, basically all the agencies in California now have to give the big flying fickle finger of fate to ICE and say, as a matter of fact, no, we're not going to hold this individual. We're going to release him out to the street. So whereas you would have had a safe environment, a jail in which ICE officers could come and then pick someone up on a detainer or a hold, then California decides it's going to release them right back into the street, which means that whereas before it was safe, now you've got somebody that has to be detained out with everyone else, just like any other arrestee. And it doesn't do the detainee any good because now they get arrested at work, at home, in front of kids, and in bad situations.
What can you do if you're not going to get local help in trying to track down folks you say not only shouldn't be here, but they're a threat to people here?
Well, look, if he thinks he's protecting the immigrant community, he's doing quite the opposite, because if he thinks ICE is going away, we're not. There's no sanctuary from federal law enforcement. Matter of fact, we're in the process now. I'm going to significantly increase our enforcement presence in California. We're already doing it. We're going to detail additional enforcement assets to California. California better hold on tight. They're about to see a lot more special agents, a lot more deportation officers in the state of California.
Hello, Jerry Brown. Hello, state of California. Did you hear what Acting Director Homan just said? If you think he's going away, then you'd best rid yourself of that idea, because not only is he not going away, he's doubling down, and he's going to throw more agents at California. So if you think you won, I don't quite think you won.
Yeah. If the politicians in California don't want to protect their communities, then ICE will.
So, Director, what do you do?
Thank you. Thank you. But let me tell you this. It's like the FBI and the DOJ on a federal level. It's not the line level agents, officers, deputies that don't want to do the job. They're dying to do the job, literally and figuratively. That's what they trained for. It's the upper level management, governors, bureaucrats who make this crap up and make the jobs of everyone else significantly more difficult and dangerous.
Do if local police turn the other way and say, all right, our loyalty is to the governor?
Well, first of all, the street cops, they do not like this legislation. They're totally against it.
Correct.
Street cops understand what we're trying to do. We want to take public safety threats out of the communities. And so this is a political decision. This isn't a law enforcement decision. No one thought about the safety of law enforcement when this decision was made. I mean, no one thought about cases like Kate Steinle. You know, there's other, I can give example. In Sonoma County a few weeks ago, an illegal alien was arrested. We put a detainer on him. He was arrested for domestic violence.
Listen to this.
Sonoma County didn't honor the detainer. What?
This will be replicated in California geometrically. More to come.
Happened. 2 weeks later, he killed that girl. Now she has 2 young daughters without a mother. So I can give example after
and
example of the effect this law is going to have on the community safety in the state of California. The state of California better hang on tight, because the smuggling organizations...
Because he's coming for you, Jerry.
...are using the sanctuary cities law, this sanctuary state law as a selling ploy. More illegal aliens will be coming to California. More criminal aliens will be coming to California. So California just bit off a lot more than they can chew.
How do you follow up on that, though? How do you search these individuals out without...
And by the way, there's a point I'm going to make with London very shortly.
...without looking, as I think the governor was intimating, like the Gestapo?
I got 20,000 American patriots that work for ICE. They strap a gun to their hip every day and leave the safety and security of their homes to protect these communities and protect the homeland. So shame on Governor Brown for that opinion. What I can tell you we're going to do in response is, as I said, we're going to vastly increase our enforcement footprint in the state of California. We're going to be all over the place, and we're going to enforce law without apology. What I'm also doing is working with the Department of Justice for these sanctuary cities that knowingly shield and harbor an illegal alien in their jail and don't allow us access.
There's an applicable United States code for that, too.
That is, in my opinion, a violation of 8 U.S.C. 1324. That's an alien smuggling statute. I've asked the Department of Justice to look at this. Are these sanctuary cities, can we hold them accountable? Are they violating federal law? So there's more to come on that. That's certainly an angle we're looking at.
What if they do just that? What do you do?
Pardon me?
What if they do just that? What do you do?
I think we charge some of these sanctuary cities with violating federal law. I think if they knowingly harbor and shield a known illegal alien, a public safety threat, in a jail, and won't give us access to that alien.
But they are, Director, right? In a lot of cases, they're doing just that. Then what do you do if they're protecting, or there's a shield, a protection around?
Neil, apparently you weren't listening. He's applying more agents, and they're going to arrest people and detain people in more uncomfortable situations. Certainly uncomfortable for the ICE agents, and very uncomfortable for the families and the businesses and the schools that you've now forced these agents to go into. And by the way, if you think that you're going to stop an ICE agent from going into a school, that's not going to happen.
Such individuals, how do you force the point?
We got to work with the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice needs to do a couple things. Number one, they need to They need to file charges against the sanctuary cities. Number two, they need to hold back their funding. Another thing they need to do, they need to hold these politicians personally accountable. I mean, more citizens are going to die because of these policies, and these politicians can't make these decisions.
See, when you go on personal suits, the leftists and defense attorneys have a phrase for that, and the phrase is a chilling effect. I suggest that Acting Director Homan is correct. Perhaps it's time to create a chilling effect within the various administrators, bureaucrats, and government-appointed individuals all up and down the state of California.
And be held.
Let's make their wallets. Let's make them hurt. There, in their cash, in their checkbook, in their accounts.
Unaccountable for people.
It's personal for everyone else. Why shouldn't it be personal for them?
Dying. I mean, we need to hold these politicians accountable for their actions.
Does the president share your views, sir?
Absolutely, he does.
And he's told you that?
The president is totally against sanctuary cities. He knows as well as I do that people are dying. People are being victimized by illegal aliens in this country. And there's certain sanctuary cities that don't want to cooperate with us. Look, this is about the American public. This is about the U.S. citizens are being victimized by some of these criminal illegal aliens. We got to hold sanctuary cities responsible. This is going to continue. The crime rate in California is going to increase. If you just Google recidivism rates, at least 50% of these criminal aliens being released back into the public will reoffend the first year. 75% will reoffend within 5 years. This is a victimization of the American community.
Stop right there. As I told you last week, you know, the issue is that crimes are going up because of illegal aliens, federal crimes. They're up a marked percentile. Now, that doesn't even take into account state effects. In other words, the state of California really doesn't want to tell you how many illegals it has in custody at any one time. There's no real box that you tick off for that, but I can tell you with excellent veracity that in the Los Angeles County jail system on any given day, and it varies, you can have anywhere from 30 to 35 to 40 to 50% of the people that are in custody in the County of Los Angeles jail system illegal. That's just in the state of California. Now multiply it, as Obama says, by the rest of the 58 states.
This isn't America I grew up in. We got to take these sanctuary cities on. We got to take them to court. And we got to start charging some of these politicians with crimes.
Director, thank you for taking the time.
Boys,
Thomas Homan, the acting ICE director, joining us out of
is
Washington.
he absolutely correct? But there's more good stuff going on. There were stories that you've heard covered here, and some actual good things did in fact happen.
It's been quite a year for breaking news. How about it has not stopped like nothing I've ever seen before in my life? Good and bad, but a lot of stories have still managed to fly under the radar, and a lot of them good. In case you missed it, our next guest is here to break down the stories that have been swept under the rug for unintended purposes. Joining us right now with the most underreported stories of 2017 is Olympic Media Managing Editor Katie Freites. Katie, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks
for having me.
The number one story you believe that doesn't get enough attention is...
Listen to this. This would not be what you would think is the most underreported story, DWS.
The economy. Why?
Absolutely. So, well, if you look, of course, black unemployment is at its lowest rate in 17 years since 2000. That's amazing. Wait. That doesn't make sense. Black unemployment is down under a white president who hates everyone. And black unemployment didn't go down under the black president who loves everyone, particularly blacks? What? Amazing news. The overall unemployment rate is down. That is good for every single family.
No, that can't be right.
In America. You look at tax reform being passed yesterday, and you have places like Comcast and Wells Fargo and Boeing giving $1,000 bonuses for the holidays and raising their internal minimum wages. Confidence in the economy and confidence.
Okay, stop right here just for a second. I got to go back into chat because I saw a comment here. Whiskey Dale asked, do we arrest the mayors? Mary Brockman said yes. Well, not quite yet. It's up to Jeff Sessions, little Jeffy. But it's going to be up to the DOJ to do it. Traveling Cynic said what I've been saying for quite some time. And it all goes back to November 9th of 2016. TC says 2018 will be the year of the indictment of the corrupt Democrat. And how did that all start? Oh, that's right. It started on November 9th with Trump, Russia. They opened the door. TC recognizes that. And guess who's walking through?
And Trump's performance with the economy are both up. And no one seems to want to report this because it means you'd have to admit that the president is doing something right.
Yeah, it begun interesting. I remember when President Bush's economy was rolling. The fact is the Iraq war was not going well. So therefore, that became the #1 story.
And everybody hates the guy with the dead cat on his head, right? Well, I've got a couple of articles coming up in a little bit. I've got a very interesting article by Kurt Schlichter, and I've got a very interesting article kind of in contrapoint to that by David French.
So speaking of Iraq, their liberation from ISIS, Syria's liberation from ISIS for the most part in Raqqa. Not many people saw that coming so quickly, nor did they report it. That was brought up by the New York Times editorial page the other day.
You're absolutely right. And look, these people can't stomach that Trump took a different position than...
Because they cannot afford President Trump to win on any level whatsoever. Roll with me. Tonight, we will cover all of this, and you will see how it all interlocks and dovetails together.
Former President Obama on this, he looked at the military and he said, they know how to defeat terrorists, so I'm not going to micromanage them. I'm going to take my hands off. I'm going to let Defense Secretary Mattis do his job. And look what has happened in the last year. They've been pushed out of Iraq.
Wait a minute. Did we just hear a president get out of the way of his military? What?
This is out of Iraq. They're being pushed out of Syria. How many lives have been saved? How many people have been liberated because Donald Trump took the actions that Obama wouldn't?
Right. It's kind of interesting, too, because the Iraqi prime minister is coming here saying, hey, guys, come back. We trust you. We don't want to be under the influence of Iran. Hopefully we'll capitalize. Yeah, hopefully we'll capitalize on that opportunity because we put so much into that.
And Iran? Oh, my. We'll get to that as well.
Country already. Now, you talk about Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Awan family. Tell everybody what this story's about and where it's been.
This out.
This is, I think, the single most underreported story of the entire year. So you have these congressional Democratic House IT aides. They have transferred hundreds of thousands of dollars improperly from the Congressional Credit Union to Pakistan to a
And they started a car lot. They started and bought a car lot to launder money while they were working for the Democrats.
Real estate development that's under fraud allegations. They have mysteriously misplaced over $100,000 in congressional equipment. No one knows where it is or where it went. On top of that, and this is the most serious part, these IT aides, without authorization, accessed the House Democratic Caucus servers thousands of times. They transferred huge amounts of data off of these servers. We don't know where that data went. And on top of that, these IT aides had access.
Well, let's see. Where could it possibly have gone? North Korea? Hacking? Russia? China? Bad actors? Jesus Christ.
To the Intelligence Committee, the Homeland Security and Foreign Affairs committees, the emails from these congressmen and women they had access to. Where did this data go? No one seems to care. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been everything except helpful. And honestly, Paul Ryan should be doing more too. No one seems to care about this data, this money. Where did it go and why?
Okay, stop. Just 1 second. I went back into chat. The way this thing is set up, I have to kind of bounce back and forth between screens. But and again, you're absolutely right. Whiskey Dale was talking about a RICO. I've said that all of these bad actors in this, you can point to a RICO, and they should all be gathered together in a big group, and a RICO investigation opened on them. Put them all together. RICO is a racketeer, influenced, corrupt organization for two reasons: power and money. Power and money. And so, in my opinion, you could go RICO on this. The problem with that is, and it's BZ's DC axiom writ huge, writ large, is any administration really backs off of stuff like this, because if you set a precedent, let's say little Jeffy Sessions, who should be the hell out of the AG's office, He doesn't have the stones. He doesn't have 2 stones to rub between himself. I know neighborhood feral cats with bigger stones. He needs to go, but it would be his decision. Can you imagine if Jeffy Sessions then decided to open a RICO investigation on all of this stuff together? They are afraid. The Republicans are afraid to do this because they would pretty much full well be assured that when everything changes, and it will change, that the next administration, by way of the Democrats, will do the exact same thing, and they don't want to open those boxes. So when you sit and you wonder sometime, well, why isn't X getting done? Why isn't Y getting done? Why isn't Z getting done? Now you know BZ's DC axiom. They don't want that pulled against them.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to stay all over it because we know this. We kept them in the country, so at least we know where they are right now. They better not go home.
Absolutely correct. So those were some good things right there. But now I told you that we're going to get into how this has an effect on other things like London. There are consequences to your actions. There are consequences, as Barack Hussein Obama once said, to elections. Ha ha, he said. We won. You didn't. In kind, ha ha. Democrats, we won. You didn't. You'll be back again. That's how things go. But in any event, what you do, what you say, what you allow in, what kind of actions you just ignore or condone, they have consequences. Here's an article that I discovered. Sadiq's London. Sadiq Khan, as you may know, is the mayor of London. He's a Muslim. Sadiq's London. Knife crime, gun crime, theft, burglary, rape, homicide, all massively up. This is BZ's puzzled look. I call it the CPL, the canine puzzlement look. Look at it the next time your dog does this, because you'll see it. And when your dog is puzzled, your dog looks like this. This is why by the way, you ought to be on YouTube, watching on YouTube and watching on Facebook, because you won't get the joke just listening to the audio version of this. This is what BZ calls the canine puzzlement look. You know you've seen that on your dog many times. Britain's media celebrated in droves when London elected its first Muslim mayor, Sadiq Khan, in May of 2016. Now the cacophony caused by the "we're not racist" backslapping has ended, the true implications of a Khan mayoralty are being realized. In Britain's capital, over the past year, in London, Khan presided over rises in knife crime, gun crime, theft, burglary, rape, homicide, and more. And not just by a wee little bit either. Some in the media, by which the author writes basically just himself, predicted Khan might be a disaster for London, but the extent to which this is true was beyond even everyone's worst nightmare. Got about 1 more minute before the break. Parking the anecdotal evidence of Khan giving preference to genital mutilation-linked groups and using his platform to agitate against the U.S. president, the statistics reveal a terrifying incompetence in keeping London safe, one of the mayor's core areas of responsibility. Data from the Mayor of London's Police and Crime Office, led by former lobbyist Deputy Mayor Sophie Linden, reveals a sharp uptick in violent crime in Khan's first year of office. Hold that thought. We're going to come back. We're going to take a break, and we'll tell you all the buttery goodness that really is happening in London. Things folks won't tell you. We're going to go into some articles. We're going to skewer 2017. I'm going to play you some songs. I probably won't sing to them. Not until the very end, at least.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reaver Common Sense, and you're listening to shrmedia.com.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. And it's one of those things where, gosh, I wish I had a producer, because these days, with all the stuff that's going on, running Facebook, running YouTube, running the SHR Media site, responding in chat, and trying to get other stuff going. By the way, if you want to watch what's going on, TC asked me this, as a matter of fact. If you go to YouTube and just at the top in a search, type SHR Media, you'll go to the SHR Media page. You'll see this running. Pick today's date, Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You can watch live. Now, if you have Facebook, if you happen to be on Facebook, go to facebook.com or go to your favorite search engine, enter SHR Media, Facebook, and you should be able to go to the SHR Media Facebook page, and either place you choose, you can watch there, and of course you're listening live on shrmedia.com. We were talking about Sadiq Khan and how crime has managed to rise quite markedly under his tenure. How can that possibly be? From the years 2015, 2016 to 2016-17, homicides in London rose by 27.1%. That's rather astounding, because historically, the UK homicide rate, not so much. Now it is. Youth homicide jumped 70%. Serious youth violence was up 19%. Robbery was up 33.4%, while home burglaries rose by 18.7%. Theft went up by over 10,000 incidents in a year, up 33.9%, and there were more than 4,000 4,000 additional knife crime incidents under Khan than under his predecessor, a rise of 31.3%. There's more stuff in the article, and there's all the stats are there that you could possibly want to see. Now, as a thinking individual, you must be saying to yourself, why, possibly, would this be going up? And the answer is the UK's view of Muslims and Islam, and also specifically London's view of Islam and Muslims. Muslims in France, for example, are migrating from France, going to the UK because there are repositories of Muslims in London specifically where they know that they won't be harassed by the police. That means the police doing their damn job. Oh, police doing their job. We'll get to that in Baltimore as well. As I say, everything has consequences. But the Muslims that they're importing into the UK and also specifically into London because they know it's a friendly sanctuary, though not official, not like California. They haven't come out and outwardly said it's a sanctuary. But who are these people coming in? Is it, well, that's right, it's young males of fighting age coming in from, Northern Europe? From North Africa, West Africa, and then coming in here, and they wonder why crime is going up. Do you think going out of your way to import people like this, because that's exactly what's happening? Angela Merkel forcibly, Angela Merkel single-handedly will end up being responsible for the abject doom and damnation of Europe. Ha ha! Isn't that a great thing? Why? For her direct importation due to guilt. She's a gaup, a guilty, overeducated white person who feels guilt for World War II and must be more accepting to everyone. And of course, the people in the UK felt that they had to go along with that because they're in the EU, maybe not for long, depending upon Brexit. That's not going really well right now. But the funny thing is, you couldn't see that when you decided to import young males, specifically Muslim young males, because even that is not specifically mentioned in this article. So what do you think these were young Buddhist males? Did you think these were young Shinto males that were being imported into London? No, it's Sadiq Khan. Do the math. And the math is not doing well for Mayor Khan in London. Rape in the capital rose by 18.3%, while there were 2,551 incidents of gun crime, representing a rise of 16.3% in the previous year. So what the mayor has done, however, and you might say in the English term, oh, it's brilliant that he did this, because it makes perfect sense. I know, let's blame the police, right? Oh, hold that thought. You'll see that meme repeated shortly. The mayor has continuously blamed central government police cuts for the problems faced, but statistics, damn them. Statistics reveal London only lost around 1,000 police officers, 3%, in the past year, reducing the workforce from 31,343 to 30,379. You're almost talking NYPD kind of officers. The numbers, that's an awful lot of police. Those are numbers that are not even remotely close to any major city on the West Coast, and the exception would be New York. New York City has always had a ton of police officers. So there's that report. Then there's this report. Let's come back from across the pond to the United Snakes of America, where the people in Baltimore are they're not really happy these days because some bad things are happening to them as well. From the BaltimoreSun.com, Baltimore has now had 343 homicides in 2017, sets record for killings per capita. Per capita. Oh, that's across the entire fruited plain. That also includes Chicago per capita. With two fatal shootings that occurred Tuesday night, the recent reclassification of a decades-old shooting as a killing and another homicide Wednesday evening, Baltimore hit 343 homicides for 2017. A new record for killing per capita. The homicide rate for 2017 is now 55.8 killings per 100,000 people. The previous record was 55.35 per 1,000 in 2015. The city, Baltimore, suffered 344 homicides that year, but they had thousands more residents. The most homicides to occur was 353 in 1993, but the city had some 100,000 more residents then. Makes sense. So, with Baltimore knowing that and rivaling Chicago and occasionally surpassing Chicago, would it surprise you to know that now some of the people in Baltimore are wondering just why it is that the homicide rate is increasing? Now, I've said this since 2015. Even that lop James Comey admitted that this occurs. It's called, for lack of a better phrase, the Ferguson effect. And we already saw it in the 90s for shit's sake. I was a cop for 41 years. I've seen everything. I've seen every cyclical pattern that you could possibly feature. So let's go with LAPD for a while, shall we? Because you'll see the similarity shortly. LAPD under Gates in the 90s had the Rodney King incident and the subsequent riots. Well, then after that, it was plastered all across the media for quite some time. Side story that you may not know about this. Kind of an interesting story that people don't tell because mostly they don't know. That particular night, the videographer who had shot Rodney King had that tape on his player, went to the local LAPD station, I think it's South Central, specifically the South Central station, and said, went up to the desk and said, I have a tape of which you'll probably want a copy, and it shows something very bad. And I think it's something that you need to take attention to. And that particular individual offered to give the tape to LAPD at the time. Whoever that individual was sitting at that desk said, I'm not interested in your tape, and you can take your tape out that door right now. After having been treated that way, the individual decided, well, why don't I just go to the media with my tape? And hence, that's all where it was born, right there. Now, having said that, the LAPD got slapped for Rodney King and said, look at what happened. Now, they didn't show you the entire tape, and they didn't show you what it was that led up to that particular incident with Stacey Kuhn et al., but it did show you that small clip, and it was replayed tons of times, hundreds of times, all over the media, all across the United States, and then, of course, the world. After having seen that, the LAPD said, maybe it's time to back off some of this silly stuff. Then these officers went to trial. They were found not guilty in Simi Valley. Then they were sent to a USC, 43 USC 1983. That's called a 1983 action. BZ knows about that. Because if you went to BZ's show number 1, you found out that BZ is well acquainted with a 1983 action. And since Mom didn't say yes, they went to Dad, and they got, the first not guilty verdict. That didn't go so well. And there were riots, if you remember, all across Los Angeles. Now, the LAPD, having been slapped down and said, you are over-policing, decided that it was a good day to under-police. Well, there were some problems. Daryl Gates didn't think the situation was that bad that day and went out to some kind of a convention or a dinner. There was no central command and control. No one really knew what the hell was going on. They weren't told to do everything, and because they were outnumbered, LAPD pulled out of all the neighborhoods. They weren't equipped. They weren't ready. They weren't prepared. So LAPD got kicked up the butt for over-responding, and then they got kicked up the butt for under-responding. They can't get it right. Back to this article. Baltimore residents blame record high murder rate on low police presence. Wait. Baltimore had its own incident in which Mobley decided that she was going to prosecute all of the officers involved for an in-custody death in the back of a particular vehicle. None of the officers were found guilty. She overcharged in her zeal to get these officers. So as a result, Baltimore PD said, I think we're being accused of over-policing. Perhaps it's time to pull some of our officers back and let's not over-police. Well, this wasn't a suggestion. This was more of an order. It's not like a hint. Maybe you might not want to do some of the things that you've done in the past. It wasn't a, could you please? It was, no. Essentially, proactive police response disappeared. Now, all of the officers decided that when the machine went, oot, they're going to hit the button and go to the call. However, two types of policing, responsive policing and proactive policing. Proactive policing turned to hell because the officers discovered that the community wasn't interested in it, the Bureau wasn't interested in it, the administrators weren't interested in it, and they still made the same paycheck. And, by the way, the criminal complaints and also the IA, the Internal Affairs investigations on Baltimore PD officers, went down. All was well. All were happy. Were they not? For the third year in a row, Baltimore, Maryland has had more than 300 murders, reaching a new record of murders per number of residents in 2017. Some residents attribute the high murder rate to relaxed police patrols in the city following high-profile cases of police brutality. Officers have backed off in neighborhoods like the one where Freddie Gray was arrested, the case to which I referred. The Reverend Kinji Scott, a pastor in Baltimore who's held positions in local city government, said the opposite needs to happen. Stop. Really? The opposite needs to happen. So Baltimore, the Baltimore Police Department, needs to go back to the way things were prior to Freddie Gray. Well, consider that for just a moment. And ask yourself this general question. Do black Americans or people who happen to live in areas that are blighted, do they have a lesser right to police protection than anyone else in the city of Baltimore? Obviously, that's a stupid question. The answer is no. Were you aware that after the 1965 and 66 riots in Baltimore, now that's over 40 years ago, much of Baltimore was never rebuilt? And under whose reign was Baltimore for essentially all those years? Liberals, leftists, Democrats. And who was it that you thought were issuing these orders to the police to back off? The administrators, the mayor, the council, etc. What do we know about most of the people in Baltimore and most of the administrators in the city of Baltimore and most of the officers in the city of Baltimore Police Department? They're black. So do you see a coming conundrum, a particular issue being formed here where, as I said before, everything is cyclical and goes round and round? Does it not? And so now the people in Baltimore who deserve police protection and always have, it's not a matter of melanin count, it's a matter of politics, but it's never a matter of melanin count, and they've always been due police protection. There's no reason they should never not have police protection until the officers are being accused of over-policing, and the suggestion is not there. The telling is there that you will back off in these communities. Now, will they have the stones to say that it's written somewhere that you're going to do this? And the answer is no. They would never put anything like this in writing. But you go to any officer working in the city of Baltimore and ask he or she what the current morale might happen to be in that city. And was it ever hinted or suggested to you that you back off? Let's go back to the city of Berkeley. And what did we discover about the riots in the city of Berkeley? The mayor of the city of Berkeley, the police chief of the city of Berkeley, the police chief of the University of California at Berkeley, all told their troops and their people that during these protests and riots, they were to back off. And they did. And you saw what happened. This is what happens when you work under a leftist regime or a Democrat-controlled city. Now the people in the city of Baltimore are upset because it seems as though they're not getting their fair share of policing. Well, they're right. They aren't. But the police officers involved are simply doing what they've been told. Politically and fiscally speaking, officers will be sacrificed. They're the first to be sacrificed, and they know it. So, do they not heed their betters? Yes, they do. And this is the result. This guy's among activists who are calling for police reform to reduce the violence in Baltimore and several other high-crime cities across the U.S. that he says haven't seen change. That change begins with a conversation between the communities directly involved. Yes, absolutely correct. So you can see the difference. We're going to change gears. We got about another 5 minutes before the top of the hour. This is interesting. This is from the Pew Research Center. This article was called 17 Striking Findings from 2017 because we're bidding adieu to 2017. Number one, the partisan divides dwarf demographic differences on key political values. The average gap between the views of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents and Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents across 10 political values has increased from 15 percentage points in 1994 to 36 points today. And the stats are all there if you want to go to the Pew Research Center. Not Pew like ping, pew, but the Pew Research Center. Number two, Donald Trump's presidency has had a major impact on how the world sees the United States. A global median of just 22% have confidence in Trump to do the right thing when it comes to international affairs, according to a survey conducted last spring. Do you think that's politicized as well? I would suggest it is, because leftists would think that to place the embassy in Jerusalem, the U.S. embassy being placed there, is the wrong thing to do. And we haven't even come to Iran yet, have we? Number three, about 4 in 10 Americans say they live in a gun-owning household, while 3 in 10 say they personally own a gun. Protection tops the list of reasons for owning a gun, and most gun owners, 74%, say the right to own a firearm is essential to their personal sense of freedom. About 3/4, 73%, say they can't see themselves ever not owning a gun. Gun ownership is more common among men, whites, and those who live in rural areas. Gosh, I wonder why that might be, especially the rural areas. Gun owners and non-owners have starkly different views on gun violence in America. While a majority of those do not own guns, 59% see gun violence as a major problem in the country today. By the way, since the 90s, gun violence statistically has plummeted like a rock. And just 1/3 of adults who own guns say this is a very big problem. Democrats and Republicans, number 4. Democrats and Republicans disagree now more than ever on the news media's watchdog role. Roughly 9 in 10 Democrats say news media criticism keeps political leaders from doing things that shouldn't be done, compared with 42% of Republicans who say this, the widest gap in Pew Research Center surveys conducted since 1985. This stands in stark contrast to early 2016, when similar shares of Democrats, 74%, and Republicans, 77%, supported the media's watchdog role. Hold that thought at number 4, because now I found another Pew Research survey, which is linked to this, which says this, Pew, Trump media 3 times more negative than Obama, just 5% positive. So if you're wondering how or where that was coming, well, let's go into this. Let's delve headfirst into this article here. The media's coverage of President Trump has been overwhelmingly negative, more than 3 times more critical than the initial coverage of former President Barack Obama, and twice that of former Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. The Pew Research Center said the early coverage of Trump was 62% negative. By comparison, Obama's coverage was just 20% negative. Stop. Here's an interesting little tidbit that no one is telling you about, but is absolutely true. At this precise time in Trump's history, his year, his first year, right now, his approval is at 45%. What the American media maggots are not telling you is this. President Barack Hussein Obama's approval rating at this same point in his first term was 45%. That's correct. Hear that before? I think perhaps you haven't. Coverage of Trump's first 60 days delivered greater share of negative assessments than coverage of previous presidents. About 6 in 10 stories on Trump's early days in office had a negative assessment, about 3 times more than the early coverage of Obama, and roughly twice that of Bush and Clinton. Coverage of Trump's early time in office moved further away from a focus on the policy agenda and more towards character and leadership, said Pew. And I've got some very interesting articles that will buttress that, as I forecasted. The report about the harsh media coverage was included in Pew's year-ending report titled 17 Striking Findings from 2017. Imagine that. Now let's go back to that original article, 17 Striking Findings, and let's go to number 5. Because considering where we went before, across the pond, and I brought us back to the United Snakes of America, here's number 5. This is interesting. Muslims are projected to be the world's fastest growing major religion group in the decades ahead. By 2035, the number of babies born to Muslims is projected to modestly exceed births to Christians, mostly due to Muslims' relatively young population and high fertility rates. What have I said for years? BZ axiom, demography is prophecy. And what is prophesized in Europe, thank you Angela Merkel, is that by 2050, Muslims will be the predominant persons in all of Europe. The Muslim population in Europe, now accounting for 4.9% of the total population, is projected to continue to rise, even if there is no new migration in the coming decades. And the chance of that happening, twofold, slim and none, mostly none. The Muslim share of the region's population is expected to increase to 7.4% by 2050. And there were new estimates that just came out before that. Now, we're going to finish this article and continue on to some other articles. As we say here on the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being in chat. Goodbye, 2017. Don't let the screen door slap you on the arse on your way out.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on shrmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it. Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll. Like, what are you talking about? Just like the last question that you really cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, less than 2 miles away from the belly of the beast, the evil, insane belly of the beast, where I broadcast behind enemy lines and occupied Fornicalia, the state capital of California, is less than 2 miles that direction, that way. How sad that BZ has to broadcast here, because I may as well. Very few other people are doing it, and you're listening to the SHR Media Network, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, and thank you for listening. As a matter of fact, we're talking about the 17 current trends that have been identified by Pew Research. Number 6, in the U.S., Hispanic identity fades across generations as distance from immigrant roots grow. High intermarriage rates and declining immigration are changing how some Americans with Hispanic ancestry see their identity. Most U.S. adults with Hispanic ancestry self-identify as Hispanic, but 11%, or 5 million, do not. Number 7, Americans see fundamental differences between men and women. But men and women have different views on the causes of these differences. Majorities of women who see gender differences in the way people express their feelings, excel at work, and approach parenting say differences between men and women are mostly based on societal expectations. Men who see differences in those areas tend to believe biology is the root. Number 8. Many Americans expect certain professions to be dominated by automation in their lifetime. This is the conundrum, but few see their own jobs at risk. Roughly 3/4 of Americans think it's realistic that robots and computers might one day do many jobs currently done by humans, and sizable majorities expect jobs such as fast food workers and insurance claims processors to be performed by machines within their lifetimes. Yet just 30% of American workers expect their own jobs or professions to become automated. Perhaps this is a perfect time to insert this. As I said last Thursday, this is what we need to progress to, a merit-based immigration system, the likes of which Canada has, they won't tell you, Australia has, they're pretty quiet about that too, and we had, the United States had, until 1965. Why would you go out of your way to import people whose skills, low wage, entry level, that people that even have difficulty performing those jobs, and even if they do get into those jobs, they know those jobs are going away to be replaced by automation. That's just where everyone in a Western culture is going. So why go out of your way to import people who cannot rise to the level of this? Canada, when the Chinese immigration was huge in the mid-90s, told every Chinese individual who a lot of Chinese moved to Vancouver, for example, had to bring $10,000 with them. Why can't the United States set something similar to this? Because isn't it high tech that's saying, we must have immigrants? Okay, so screen and vet the immigrants for those who have great educations, a great background. Open your arms wide and say, huzzah, huzzah, the United States wants you into this country. What's wrong with merit-based immigration? Silicon Valley is already complaining about it. It's something that we ought to go to. Number 9. The share of Republicans who hold negative views and the effect of colleges and universities on the country has grown significantly since 2015. Yeah, okay. Here's a great link for you. Go to campusreform.org, campusreform.org, and you will see documented there in great detail how our campuses, colleges, universities they're being delaminated by leftists. And the insanity reigns, and number 9 should actually not be very much of a shock at all. 10. Immigrants are projected to play the primary role in the growth of the American working-age population in the coming months. Okay, maybe in the coming months, but note to self, all immigrants and Americans, get your asses educated, because making the machine at a Starbucks go is not in your future. Not really very well. And pressing the cheeseburger icon at Mickey D's, ding, that will not lead you to much of a future except perhaps a lot of pain. Number 11, news stories about President Trump's first 60 days in office offered far more negative assessments. We already went there. We already did that. Number 12, in the past 10 years, the share of U.S. adults living without a spouse or partner has increased. This rise in unpartnered Americans from 39% in 2007 to 42% today has been most pronounced among young adults. No surprise. Number 13. About half of 2.2 million people who sought asylum in Europe during the 2015 and 2016 refuge surge were still in limbo at the end of 2016 and did not know if they would be allowed to stay. Confusion? It will be Angela Merkel's epitaph. And yes, in Europe, again, you have all of you have Angela Merkel to thank so wonderfully. And it should be no shock while nationalists are starting to grow and globalists are starting to diminish, because look at what has been wrought upon Europe. Number 14, about 8 in 10 Americans say they understand the risks and challenges of police work, but 86% of police say the public does not understand. Abso-damn-lutely correct. And I would refer to my prior statements about this. Someday we're going to go into an entire show about this, and boy, do I have stories about Americans not understanding. Number 15, about 6 in 10 Americans age 18 to 29 say the primary way they watch television now is with streaming services on the internet. Bingo, BZ pulled the plug as well from Dish, because his bill was about $175 a month, and when he went to Hulu and Netflix, he found he could get just about the same thing. By the way, you can get live TV on Hulu. I'm not getting paid a damn thing to say that, but I found out you have to have a pretty good internet connection, by the way. So that should come as no shock either. Number 16, views on whether whites benefit from social advantages that blacks do not have are split sharply along racial and partisan lines. Stop. Quick question. For the past 8 years, who pushed identity politics? I think you know the answer to that. Number 17. Science knowledge is closely related to expectations for harm from climate change among Democrats, but not among Republicans. Go to climatedepot.org. Climatedepot.org, because this is the guy that's telling you that climate change is a scam. And for every study that leftists, I call them the religious left, because that's what it takes to believe in this stuff. Climate change? Yeah. Climate change. The climate changes. The climate is changing now. Right now, this climate change is called winter. Now, oddly enough, winter will be followed by spring. That's climate change. And then it's going to get hot. That's called summer. And then it will tend to transition to a little cooler. That's called fall. Jesu Christi. Okay, so that was the 17 bits of that. Now the time has come for some audio cuts that will make you cry. You'll cry if you're a leftist. You'll cry. There will be tears, but that's okay. You'll get over it, because everything that people on the left didn't want to happen and they swore would not happen. Oh, my God.
Which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump.
And Coulter.
Now President Obama weighing in, saying yet again that he does not believe that Donald Trump can end up winning this election.
Can you imagine Donald Trump standing up one day and delivering a State of the Union address?
Well, I can imagine it in a Saturday night skit.
Mr. Trump will not be president.
I don't see how he can win.
So Donald Trump will lose, and he will then destroy the Republican Party.
Can Donald Trump win a general election? My view is no.
You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see, I'm at 42 and you're at 3, so
Doesn't
far
matter.
I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
Well, I can't find a single Republican. I talked to probably 12 Republican senators yesterday or their representatives. I couldn't find a single one who now thinks they're going to win.
Donald Trump is not going to get the nomination.
I'd like to support the nominee, but he's not going to be the nominee.
Jeb.
That's just not going to happen.
Thanks,
John.
John.
I think it's likely that Donald Trump will be the nominee.
Thanks, Mitt.
He is not going to be the nominee.
Well, I'm going to support the Republican
Thanks,
nominee,
Marco.
and I'm comfortable that it's not going to be Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is not going to get this Republican nomination.
So, Jenny,
Could he actually win?
No freaking way!
Do not tell me that Donald Trump is in this to win this, okay? He's a sideshow.
I don't think his plan has anything to do with Latinos. His plan, his strategy is to win the White House without Latinos. I don't think he can do it.
Jorge Ramos. Jorge, thanks.
The Fox News.
Just a question. Why should any political party pay attention to just Latinos or just blacks? Maybe they should pay attention to the communities in which these people reside and try to attack the conditions in which they live.
Decision Desk has called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. This means that Donald Trump will be the 45th president of the United States.
Oh, no.
You're awake, by the way.
Hello, darkness.
You're not having a terrible, terrible dream. Also, you're not dead and you haven't gone to hell.
My old friend.
This is your life now. This is our election now. This is us. This is our country.
I know. It's so sad.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was
Has to be a joke. I cannot believe this is happening. I'm literally about to fucking kill myself. I'm not kidding. You better fucking fix this shit right now. I literally am gonna die. I need an ambulance. I can't believe it.
Well, let's just cut to the chase. Assuming, and that's what we're talking about, that he does win. People I'm speaking to think it's absolutely catastrophic. That it's catastrophic for the United States, that it's catastrophic for our position in the world. It emboldens our enemies and adversaries. It makes our allies terrified that we're not going to be their allies anymore. Most people...
Economy. It's the economy, stupid. Tax cuts. Appointments to the Supreme Court. Bombing Syria. Russia pulling out of Syria.
Think that this type of scenario happens. That if you imagine the United States as a nuclear warship, we stop.
Hold it now.
I have no respect for women who voted for Trump. Okay? Yeah.
Right. You're all misogynists.
So
every
poorly
last
of them, and the reason
one
why
of you.
is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb.
There you go. That's nailing it. Of course, let's laugh. Let's laugh again. We were laughing at leftists. Why should we stop laughing? Let's laugh at some MSNBCers.
The best way to oppose fake news is for people to watch outlets like MSNBC, where you report real news all the time.
All the time. Real news all the time.
Respectfully, Senator, I don't count myself among Donald Trump's critics. I count myself as a journalist.
That he can actually control exactly what people think. And that is the...
Donald Trump can control the way people think. Oh, my God.
That is our job.
And I, too, have a pre-existing condition. I'm a woman.
Who's asking for a Labor Day rundown in my ear?
Not me.
Our job tonight actually is to scare people to death on this subject.
On the incident that left Senator Rand Paul with 6 broken ribs. This might be one of my favorite stories, although, of course, we don't want to. Clearly, Senator Paul is still struggling.
I don't feel like we're having a really fair conversation.
Our perspective as a group, I think, is pretty informed.
And Donald, if you're watching, we're from Queens. I'll meet you in the schoolyard, brother. You need to be schooled.
What I have here is a copy of Donald Trump's tax returns.
Do you remember that? Rachel Madcow's tax returns. And, oh, by the way, were you aware that Al Franken did, in fact, tender his resignation papers today? But why should we stop laughing there at 2017, right? Don't you think that BZ has more buttery goodness afoot just for you? Hey, follow the bouncing ball and you too can sing along, all right?
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do is tell you what we're recommending. But first, let me tell you what we found. 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top secret, 36 of those chains secret, and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, no regulation.
Secretary Clinton should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
None of these emails true.
Nothing was marked classified.
There is evidence.
Nothing was marked classified.
Now let me tell you what we found.
Oh my gosh.
110 emails.
It was not the best choice.
52 email chains.
It was the mistake.
Have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains were top secret.
Wasn't the best choice.
6 of those chains
I said it was a mistake.
8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
With respect to our recommendation, this is going to be an unusual statement in at least a couple of ways. Although there is evidence, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. What difference at this point does it make? 110 emails.
It wasn't the best choice.
52 email chains.
I made a mistake.
Have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains were top
It was not a good choice.
6 of those chains
I said it was a mistake.
and 8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
That was absolutely brilliant, but guess what? The brilliance doesn't stop there. Here's what I bet you haven't heard, and certainly not recently. Right? Are you feeling it?
I don't feel no ways tired.
I don't.
I'm too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
We came out of the White House dead broke. We struggled to piece together the resources. We had no money when we got there. I wrote about it in my book, Hard Choices. You know, it was not easy. We had to make double the money because of obviously taxes. It has been reported you've made $5 million making speeches. I've had disappointments and setbacks.
I don't feel no ways tired. I'm too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
I remember landing under sniper fire. We just ran with our heads down to get to our base.
Problem is, that's not what happened. She meant that there was fire in the hillside around, which was the case.
We landed in one of those corkscrew landings. The welcoming ceremony had to be moved inside.
Once again, her memory doesn't match our videotape.
But it was a moment of great pride.
I don't feel no ways tired. I'm too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
You know, it was not easy. We came out of the White House dead broke. You know, I've had a blessed life. I mean, sure, I've had disappointments and setbacks.
Yeah, I misspoke.
I remember landing under sniper fire.
No, wait, that's what I said when I was sleep deprived.
You know, life is filled with disappointments. I really like my life.
I don't feel no ways tired.
Get down.
Too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. I don't feel no ways tired. I'm too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Right? He didn't bring you this far. We've got about another 5 minutes. I had to play that. I had to play that. Here's an article by Kurt Schlichter. And it goes like this. Trump ends 2017 residing in his enemies' heads. As 2017 comes to a close, tumbleweeds roll down the empty Lido deck while the Republican base answers the questions. What if Conservative Inc., INC, what if Conservative Inc. gave a cruise and nobody came? The Democrats fled Washington under cover of darkness, desperate to keep their slobbering socialist wing from forcing them to commit ritual suicide by closing down the government over Christmas, because the GOP Congress, for now, won't hand a couple million illegal aliens citizenship. What's the problem in that? Robert Mueller's Keystone Cop Corp started off with unquestioned integrity and ended the year with totally questioned integrity. The mainstream media abandoned the principle of objectivity in favor of shrill advocacy, yet it is baffled that most Americans now consider its members just like another bunch of partisan hacks. In the White House, where everyone who was anyone told us Felonia Milhouse von Pantsuit would reign, President Donald Trump finished the year by signing a tax reform bill that punished conservatives' enemies and rewarded their friends. The Democrats get to go tell their base of blue state coastal swells sorry about losing those state tax deductions because we were too busy resisting to actually negotiate and thereby get a seat at the table. Cue the sad trombone. Trump plays for keeps, unlike the squish cons who play for media hugs and invitations to the kids' pool parties. He was supposed to lose the primary, but he didn't. He was supposed to lose the general, but he didn't. He was supposed to fall victim to the covert schemes of leftist bureaucrats and the overt obstruction of the resistance, but he didn't. Instead, Donald Trump has prospered as the most conservative president since Ronald Reagan, and it's breaking the souls of his enemies deliciously. The elite keeps losing to the guy they tell us is dumb. The elite keeps losing to the guy they tell us is a clown. The elite keeps losing to the guy who doesn't meet their bottom line standard to be worthy of governing, being one of the elite. So what's that make the elite? He just refuses to lose. He just refuses to submit. He just refuses to give a damn about what they say or what they think. And that infuriates them. He won't take a knee, but he will offer them a finger. Brick by brick, he is dissembling the rickety edifice of Barack Obama's transformed America. Regulations? Slashed, even as the screams of the professional expert class echo across the District of Columbia. ISIS? Dead, with our military unleashed to hunt down our enemies without hesitation or mercy. The courts? Packed, not with squishy wimps ready to bend to the will of the WAPO and the Georgetown cocktail crew, but with true conservatives determined to fight for the Constitution. Trump's enemies are getting tired of all that winning. Slowly, it's dawning on Trump's enemies, on our enemies, that this isn't just an unfortunate temporary bump in the road to the Californization of America, but a U-turn. The people who elected Donald Trump were something his allegedly conservative, never-Trump opponents never were: serious about being conservative. It's easy to grift the donors with big talk about culture wars and policy initiatives when you never expect to be in a position to actually pull them off. But the normals finally got sick of election year bomb throwers morphing into pliable puff boys once their reps crossed into the Beltway. And that's how you got Trump. Suddenly, the fake hardcore facade of conservative Inc. was revealed for what it was: a pose, an act, a tiresome political voguing. When someone finally showed up who actually wanted to act on all the things the pro-cons had been talking and writing about for decades, well, that didn't leave a lot of room for those who only wanted to talk and write and luxuriate in being insiders. Never Trumpism spends a lot of time whining about how Trump is vulgar and unfit. But what these guys really resent is that he has embarrassed them. He showed them up. He did what they'd been yakking endlessly about doing, and they hate him for it. They much prefer the quiet dignity of losing under a Bush or a Romney to obscurity under a Trump. It's crisis time for Conservative Inc. The Eagle Liberty Forum of Conservative Freedom and Liberty can't fill its annual dinner tables anymore, even with a keynote speech by Ben Sass on how true conservatism, trademark, morally obligates us to lose and not offend the elite rather than win and displease our betters. That's why they hate Trump. He didn't make them irrelevant. He just showed the world that they were irrelevant, and that is unforgivable. Trump's kicking it old school in his enemies' heads, chilling in their cerebral crib. His foes define themselves by not being him. The Democrats' tax policy? Not Trump. Their regulatory policy? Not Trump. Their foreign policy? Not Trump. And it's the same with the allegedly conservative never-Trumpers. How do you get an alleged conservative to oppose moving our embassy to Israel's capital? Get Trump to finally do it. They are all about Trump 24/7, CNN, and its silly Don Lemons and Tater Stelters. They all need Trump. They obsess over him, for without Trump, they are nothing. The resistance? They have nothing but Trump to fill their empty lives, getting giddy every time some media social outlet reports that someone who knows somebody who heard somebody say that maybe Mueller is investigating someone who met Trump once for felony jaywalking. The supreme poobah of the HIPAA court is readying his grand warrants of arresting. It's got to be true because I read it on the interweb. Trump owns his foes. They are mere satellites orbiting around him, and his gravity is all that keeps them from spinning off into space. They have willingly submitted to the reality of a Trumpocentric political universe. It's hilarious. Their impeachment fever dreams are fading, so they look at popularity polls and take solace at the numbers. They took solace in them on November 8th, 2016, too. Aside, remember all the cuts I just played? It's a bit over 10 months to the midterms, and there's a growing, gnawing fear in their guts, not that tax reform will be a disaster, but that it will succeed. They look at their swelling 401ks and mourn their prosperity. They take cold comfort in the fact that with $1 zillion, they managed to beat by less than 2 points an accused Strange Joe, whose campaign strategy was to ride around on his horse. But they fear that the Republicans won't oblige them again by nominating more weirdos. And Trump rolls on, not seeking their approval, not conforming to their demands, ignoring them when he isn't mocking them on Twitter. He refuses to acknowledge their superiority, their right to rule over us normals. Because while Trump makes a wonderful avatar, he is really only that, a symbol. A representation of something more terrifying to the elite than any one man. Trump represents normal Americans, the ones the elite on both right and the left look down upon with contempt and fear. They don't really hate Donald Trump. They hate who he represents. They hate us. And they hate that they can't do a damn thing about it.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on shrmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk. The Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it again.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about?
Just like the last question that you cut a couple seconds.
Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right. Oh, God.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Well. We went over just a little bit, but that's okay. Screw it, it's my show. I can do anything I want to on my show. You are listening to the BZs, Bloviating Zeppelins. That's moi, M-O-I, moi. Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show live and direct on shrmedia.com. We are in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Network studios, 2 miles from the belly of the damn Bill Mill in Sacramento, Fornicalia. Now, I read an article about Trump by Kurt Schlichter, and I think since I found this today, it's only fair to read one by David French. Kind of a counterpoint, but let's see how much you think that it's completely applicable. Because it's a little bit different, but now compare, as my college professor used to say, compare and contrast. This article by David French is called It's Not Just Tone and Style. Concerns about Trump aren't merely aesthetic. It's time for conservative skeptics and opponents of Trump to stop worrying and embrace the president. Is it time? Hasn't the last year proven that our worst fears were unfounded? And really, aren't our remaining concerns merely trivial and possibly even elitist differences of taste and manners? Those are the questions conservative Trump skeptics face nearly every day. They're the foundation of an argument that calls us back to our team, to the partisan battlefield that seems to define our time. The argument goes something like this. A president who many feared would govern like an authoritarian nationalist populist has instead pursued relatively conventional conservative policies. In fact, on that score, he's even exceeded expectations. He's signed good legislation, nominated good judges, and pursued military policies that have led to the defeat of the ISIS caliphate. The primary remaining objection to Trump is a fairly minor one. His tone and style are unbecoming of his office. Earlier this week, Powerline's John Hinderaker described a commitment to Never Trump as requiring a, quote, belief that the tone or style issue is so important that it outweighs all the policy fronts on which the Trump administration has moved the conservative ball forward. The Wall Street Journal's James Taranto has discussed his own intuition that, quote, Never Trump is about taste far more than policy. While I, David French, can't speak for every Trump skeptic, taste, tone, and style are the least of my worries. Sure, I would prefer that politicians attempt to engage in civil discourse, to persuade ideological opponents, and to unite the nation rather than stoking irrational fear and anger. But I live in the real world and understand all too well that politics ain't beanbag. In many ways, the history of American politicians is the history of loud-mouthed, the profane, and the brash. That's life. That's politics. I'd submit, however, that there is a difference between tone and truth, between style and knowledge, or even intellectual coherence. Last week, Trump granted an interview to the New York Times' Michael Schmidt that was so rambling and inarticulate it could hardly be read as a calculated campaign of deception on the president's part. It was such a word salad, to borrow Yuval Levin's description, that it gave the impression Trump simply doesn't know what the truth is in many cases and concocts his own reality as he goes. Time and again, he made statements that were blatantly untrue, nonsensical, or both. He invented things the Democrats didn't say. Garbled the description of his own policies, bragged like a WWE wrestler hyping his prowess, and in many instances appeared to simply make things up to fit the rhetorical needs of the moment. It wasn't the first time, either. Any fair treatment of Trump's record can't simply stop with bills signed or judges appointed. We've rightly never limited our assessment of presidents to laundry lists of legislation or regulation. If we did, we'd have to reassess Bill Clinton, a man not to our taste, who nevertheless signed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, welfare reform, the Defense of Marriage Act, and a crime bill so harsh and punitive that would never have a prayer of passing today. After all, he presided over a booming economy that even a MAGA man would envy. One of the most difficult intellectual and moral exercises of the last 2 years has been resisting Trump derangement syndrome in either direction. All of the things that were important before Trump took office are still important today. Of course, that includes policy and personnel, but it also includes knowledge, character, and temperament. These latter things do not become unimportant or trivial simply because they represent Trump's unquestioned weaknesses. At the end of 1 year, my assessment of Trump's presidency is simple. On policy, he's been far better than I hoped. His temperament, however, has been worse than I feared. He's been more malicious, more deceptive, and more destructively impulsive than I thought he'd be. These are vices that render him dangerous in a true crisis and make an already toxic political culture even more polarized and volatile. They are not mere matters of taste or tone, but instead cut to the heart of what it means to be president. There is a chance that a combination of good fortune and strong support from capable advisors will insulate the nation from the worst consequences of Trump's profound flaws. We cannot, however, minimize their impact by redefining their importance. So, contrast and compare. An article here by David French. An article over there by Kurt Schlichter. And lo and behold, there is most certainly a difference about that. Now, we were talking about 2017, and there's a lot about 2017. Gosh, I could go all sorts of places. I've got 15 minutes left. Okay, I've got some politics to do, or we could talk about movies. How about movies of 2017? How about a review of a movie from 2017? After going to see this movie this weekend, I was forced to write this review, and the movie is Downsizing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I spent $40 damn dollars this past Sunday so that you don't have to, okay? That's the price I paid for myself and Mrs. Zeppelin to see a showing of Matt Damon's movie Downsizing. It's a pedantic, fussy leftist trope and includes the price of admission in that, well, I have to admit that there was some popcorn, drinks, and some Junior Mints. And I have to tell you, I like Junior Mints. And my popcorn also has to have added butter on it because, after all, I am the Zeppelin. Okay, so the popcorn and the Junior Mints, let's be honest, they saved the day. The movie itself was a complete waste of space and time. I like to cut to the chase in a review, and that's this. Downsizing is nothing more than a 2-hour and 15-minute leftist lecture on overpopulation and climate change. In other words, we're all going to die. Yeah, been there, done that, caught the trailer. Yeah, whatever. Make no mistake, okay? The producers, director, the distributors, they knew they had a turkey piece of shite on their hands. That's the reason that if you saw the trailers for Downsizing in the theater, you thought it was going to be some kind of a comedy. That's why I went. It looked like maybe they were going to make a comedy out of it, right? Okay, but here's the comedic aspect. In truth, it's about as funny as watching a dog eat its own vomit. I'm sure its creators intended for the film to be like darkly didactic, right? Instead, it's a piece of easily avoidable, darkly crafted shite. I'd place this easily into the same dribbling waste can of effluvium as the film Mother. Oh my God, also to be avoided as if it possessed the rippling wet hantavirus, okay? That's how much it needs to be avoided. It's the Norwegian doctors and their Caucasoid-ridden followers who first created the downsizing trend, and like Dr. Strangelove, right? Like the Dr. Strangelove mine shaft suggestion, they all join hands and they watch their final sunset and trot down to their own 2017 Dr. Strangelove mine shaft equivalent. Woohoo. Jesus, doesn't anyone in Hollywood have an original thought in their head anymore? I guess none of these leftist fucktards ever read Paul Ehrlich in the 70s. Apparently not, okay? And how he was brain-glazingly wrong. Shocked? No, not shocked. I have a list, and trust me when I tell you this. This list right here is huge. I have a list. Why I printed it out and wasted the paper, I'll never know. I have a list of the movies, every movie that came out in 2017. And of all of these movies, only a few stood out for me. The one about King Kong, that was a pretty good movie. The science fiction movie Life, that was a pretty good movie. The sequel to Blade Runner, that was a pretty good movie, despite the fact that people said, oh, that's all about climate change. Climate change, the movie Geostorm, that fucking tanked. Al Gore's movie, more lecture, tanked abjectly. One movie that I highly recommend is Wind River. I enjoyed Sicario. The sequel to Sicario, by the way, is coming. I mean, I could look at all these. Bright, the Star Wars movie, Jumanji, God, The Greatest Showman, Justice League. This is all CGI crap. How about movies that people actually care about? The Shape of Water, not bad, but not great. Pitch Perfect, Dunkirk, yeah, Enjoyed Dunkirk. Enjoyed the new one about Churchill as well. It, Coco, just, God. I'm not even going to go there. I don't know about you, but I'm done with CG. If CGI has its place in a movie, that's fine. But all these movies, I'm going to name movies that probably you've never seen. Valerian. Valerian was an absolutely colorful, saturated movie that was essentially all CGI. And to look at the trailer, it was gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous to look at. It was an abject piece of shite with no plot whatsoever. It was stupid. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Not bad. Beautiful to look at. A feast for the eye. But because they have no writers and they have little plot, Hollywood is relying these days on CGI and bringing out all the franchises and loud booms and bangs. Maybe it's a reflection of me just getting to be an old cranky fart. Guilty. But CGI, just for the fact of CGI, you've already proven you can do some stellar things. You've done some great things. In Star Wars, you've brought back characters that were dead. The Grand Moff Tarkin, he's dead. You brought him back. He looked pretty good. You dusted him off. Movies for 2018, I don't know. When we're talking social media, here's one big thing that I'm leaving open because I think it's going to go someplace that these folks didn't want it to go, but they're the ones responsible. Okay, BZ, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the NFL. The NFL, by the way, killed its Sunday night football because people aren't watching it. What about the playoffs? A lot of good people coming up in the playoffs? Who's going to win? Same damn team? Maybe. And what about those Browns? They're really going places. And the Bengals. The Bengals are going places too. Ohio. What a great football state. 2018 for the NFL. This will be the make or break year. Why is old BZ saying this? Because people have already got into a habit. They've gotten into a pattern. And I have too. And that's this. Click. You're gone. I have not watched one NFL game. Who's your audience, NFL? Are people on the left hoping that you'll make lots of money because of the terrible violence that you do to these poor young men who make millions and millions of dollars doing this, by the way? And if they're not smart enough to set themselves up for the future, oh fucking well, it sucks to be you and blow it all on dope and heroin. C'est la vie. But in terms of setting a pattern and a trend and a habit, 2018 is going to be the telling year. Because when you come back after the Super Bowl, I guess it's in February, next month, I don't know. I don't really give a fuck. When you come back in August and September, what's going to happen is all these people that got out of the habit of watching you, are you going to bring them back? And moreover, and trust me, I'm going to tell you this, it's not social media and it's not overexposure, although that has something a little bit to do with it. The reason so many people left you, NFL, is because you don't know your audience. Your audience consists of people moderate to right-leaning, not on the left, not far left by any stretch of the fucking imagination whatsoever. But they consist of moderate people who want an escape. And when you can no longer provide them with an escape, they will no longer provide you with cash. It's as simple as that. So, when anyone hints to you that, oh, you're fine, NFL, you're just peachy nifty, because it wasn't about your athletes sitting down and taking a knee and not even coming out at all during the national anthem, disrespecting our flag, disrespecting our anthem. You can believe that all you want. At this point, I truly couldn't care less. But 2018 NFL will be the reason that the year that you're going to live or you're going to die. And you will be moribund. I can't think of a better word for it than that. You'll either get your athletes in line and start to respect the flag and the national anthem, or my guess would be you don't have the cojones to do that, and you'll capitulate. Okay, you can do that too. All of these athletes have a right to say and do whatever they want to do. Just as I have a right to get out of the habit of caring one bleeding little dribbling fuck about you. And there you have it. That's the end of 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I've gone as many places as I possibly can for the end of 2017. I had a couple of people scheduled. Oh, wait a minute. Wait just a damn minute. I have two kind of interesting things, very important things, to tell you before I go. Number one is don't forget, or I should say remember, that tomorrow night it's the Sackheads, Sackhead Sean, Sackhead Clint, and Sackhead moi on the Sackheads radio show tomorrow night. Right in this studio, Sackhead Sean will be sitting right here, right now. So you got to be there. 8 o'clock Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, Sackheads Radio, Thursday night. Now, you remember, not long ago, 2.5 weeks ago, as a matter of fact, there was a gentleman that I was supposed to have on a Thursday named Alan Thomas, and I was promoting the crap out of him. And I said, Alan Thomas is going to be here. He knows all about the paranormal. He was formerly of Paranormal Central with Jeffrey Gonzalez, and now he's out on his own. He has his own channel, his own YouTube channel called The Squatch Zone. So he knows all about the paranormal, about UFOs, about Sasquatches, Bigfoot. He is a Bigfoot hunter, researcher, investigator, and he is going to be here Thursday. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, BZ, this doesn't make much sense because you were unhappy that he missed the show a couple of Thursdays ago. I would submit to you that he had a pretty damn good reason for doing so, and he's kind enough to come back this Thursday. And we're going to talk to him about all things paranormal, all things Sasquatch, all things UFO, and all things unexplained. And before I go, I might want to tell you why it is that he wasn't there that night, so that you don't become upset at him. He had a heart attack.
Monsieur has unlocked!
We'll meet again. Don't know when.
I love this song. I really do. I finally got White Mama to watch Dr. Strangelove because of this. This is Vera Lynn from the final song, the end song on Dr. Strangelove. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you ever so kindly for listening tonight to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct in the SHR Media Network studios. You want to contact me? You can get a hold of me, bz@shrmedia.com, and my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration is by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Thanks again, always, to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. You can make bank on it. And thank you ever so kindly for being in the chat room, for listening live, for listening in podcast. Come back tomorrow night for Sackheads. You gotta be here Thursday night for Alan Thomas. That's gonna be a metric ton of fun. God bless, take care, be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.